In 1982, Neil Ziegler, the producer of BBC's respected Play for Today strand, had noted the popularity of the time travel episode The Flip Side of Dominic Hyde. It encouraged him to create an experimental spin-off called Play for Tomorrow. 6 episodes were made and broadcast in the same time slot as its parent show. 6 writers were given a video showing a panel of experts discussing what the beginning of the 21st century might hold for Britain, and then were asked to write a TV play. Today we're talking about Shades. Hello and welcome back to Very British Futures, the podcast about UK science fiction television. And at the moment we're in a special mini-season examining Play for Tomorrow, the 1982 anthology of 6 speculative plays about what life in Britain would be like at the dawn of the 21st century. Today, wearing a bright orange jumpsuit and a natty VR visor, is John Isles, writer and co-host of the I Don't Do Sci-Fi podcast.
Thank you. I quite like your bright green shell suit, Gareth.
I think it is actually quite flattering. It goes with my eyes.
Yes, it certainly does.
Shades was written by Stephen Lowe and directed by Bill Hayes. It was broadcast on Tuesday the 11th of May at 9:15 p.m. Stephen Lowe has had a long, varied career of writing for television, theatre and film, including a stint on Coronation Street. His other science fiction contribution was an episode of the early noughties Canadian series Star Hunter. Bill Hayes was in the middle of a long career as a television director, working across many genres, from realistic science drama R3 in 1964 to EastEnders in 2006. The play stars, amongst others, Tracy Childs and Neil Pearson. There will be spoilers ahead. 1999. A year when technology has created a comfortable, materially rich country. The government has converted empty office blocks into luxury living accommodation for all single young people, where they move in after turning 18. In return for an hour of work, all their physical needs are catered for, and the residents spend their days lost in virtual reality worlds. Sheena is a recent arrival. Invited to choose the theme for her birthday party, she and her friends research history and choose the psycho-masochists of the early 80s. Sheena becomes intrigued by the CND protestors and begins to wonder why none of her peers worry about nuclear war anymore. As her interest turns into obsession, one day she wakes up and finds herself living in 1981 as a young woman called Abigail. Her neighbours from the tower block are there, also with new names. They're planning to attend a CND rally, but Abigail tells them that her dream of the future makes it feel pointless. Eventually she agrees to join them, becoming the woman in the video which Sheena has been watching. Awakening in 1999 again, Sheena tries to convince others that they should begin protesting again. Instead, her friends stage an intervention to convince her that her CND fascination is really a symptom of her real problem, a fear of growing up and adult relationships. Finally, the 80s party goes ahead, and everybody has a great time. So, the first question to start off with is, before I asked you to do this podcast, had you heard of Play for Tomorrow?
I'd heard of Play for Today, only seen clips from most of them, but I'd never heard of Play for Tomorrow. And you told me that it was quite obscure and hard to get hold of copies of just 6 episodes of it. So yeah, clearly it's not been remembered much, has it?
No, not really. It's one of those, I think you have to be a bit of a TV fan, sort of like enthusiast, to know it existed. And in fact, I probably wouldn't have heard of it. Well,
How did you hear about
I
it?
first read about it in the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction.
Roger
television.
Fulton.
Roger Fulton.
That was my Bible at one time.
It was a very useful book for getting to know about these.
Extremely. I mean, it's mostly been superseded, of course, by the internet, but I still have a copy lying around the...
Still worth having because it does cover. I mean, actually, for Play for Tomorrow, it actually has more information about Play for Tomorrow.
Exactly. I wonder who sent you those pages, Gareth.
It would be my very generous guest, I think, Mr. John Isles, who helped me out there.
Always happy to help.
So, what was your overall impression of Shades?
Well, this might be a short podcast, so I'll try and draw my answer out, shall I? Now, usually, what I'm about to say, my co-host Rebecca will say that's John code for it. I didn't like it. But I have to say, it was enjoyable, but it had flaws. And I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's a spoiler for this podcast, but I'm not sure I'd be in a rush to watch it again. It just felt like it dragged, even though it was only an hour long.
Well, I can assure you, feel free with spoilers.
Because I don't know if you want to build to a crescendo at the end of the podcast where we give our verdict or whether we indict it now. So.
Oh no, I think usually what happens, as you know from previous ones, is that I think by the end of it, people will have a pretty good idea what we're going to say at the end. And really.
And good luck tracking it down to watch.
It's interesting watching it because, first of all, it's the most science fictional, if that's a word, of the series.
That looks futuristic.
It actually looks like we're living in a BBC future there with everyone in their shiny jumpsuits and the VR goggles and the general sort of look of it, because most of the other plays in this series tend to be the present day, but we've got a computer console in a corner.
Yeah.
And so I actually give it credit that it's the only one that really kind of embraces the kind of science fiction world building part of it.
Yeah, because I watched Crimes and I watched The Nuclear Family. Mm-hmm. And I'd say The Nuclear Family was even slightly more sci-fi than Crimes. Whereas you're right, Crimes isn't it's just the concept. But from reading Roger Fulton's book, and I don't know if I'm repeating material from the episodes that are going out before this one, but they showed some films about, or they got the writers to meet some experts, didn't they? Or watch some lectures from like ecologists, scientists, whatever, just to get ideas about what the future could be. And so they all went off and wrote separate themes. This one, Stephen Lowe decided to write his, again, most of them seem to be living under the shadow of the bomb, don't they? Mm-hmm. Which, and this one quite specifically centres around CND, which ceased nuclear destruction. I believe it stands for.
I ought to know that.
Come on.
I ought to drop. Shall we? I'm going to
look
that up.
Let's look this up, listeners. They asked, what does that symbol mean? And I'm never sure what the logo is. Is it symbolic of a rocket launch?
I'm not sure if it's a rocket or a tree.
So CND is the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament.
I mean, I agree, yeah, that the bomb is definitely a theme through most of these plays. I mean, it was definitely on everyone's mind.
Radar.
If you'll forgive the pun, yes.
I know, I mean, I remember, I'm a little younger than you, Gareth, but I was at high school in the late 80s, And I remember we had a lesson where it was talked about what would happen if a nuclear bomb was dropped on our hometown of Huddersfield, and sort of just reading what had happened, like, my main target would be the ICI chemical plant. The heat would melt the tarmac of the roads. The fire brigade wouldn't be able to go out and deal with anything anyway because the roads were melting. Stuff like that. He didn't go into a lot of detail, like, your skin would melt off your bones or whatever. But yeah, I just remember that. I was probably about 87 or 88 when I was in what would now be called year 7 and 8. So yeah, it was covered then. So there was that thing. It wasn't quite that protect and survive stuff. I guess that had been passé, or was that more America where they actually did that?
I think there was a part of protect and survive was part of our kind of popular culture, I think, as a phrase. And of course we had our own, the infamous government information film and leaflet that was provided around, that was...
But we didn't do any drills or anything. And obviously famously Fred's in 1984.
So that was to come. So the bomb is one of the themes, but it's about, I think, Shades, where it's more interesting is that it's not so much about specifically the bomb. That's kind of the subject. It's more about politics and protest and what is the point of protest? Is it it's about that clash between personal comfort and standing out from the crowd. In some ways, it's quite cynical about protests.
Yes, psychomasochist, which was later diagnosed as a mental illness.
Yes, I mean, that's very interesting early on, that the dissenters have been medicalised, and we have this talk about that they're
rehabilitated or
whatever that means.
Yeah.
So that's, and there is some quite nice world building going on. I think Shades, in a way, it's about life inside the domed city, and we never really go out of it. And the domed city, this idea of there's a central place of luxury and pamperedness where people live fairly
youth blocks, they call them.
Yes, youth blocks. I mean, that goes back to Brave New World.
Oh yeah,
really. With
I've never read it. It's one of the things I've never got around to. I know bits about it by osmosis, but never read Brave New World.
Well, in some ways I'm similar, that I've kind of learnt it more by osmosis, really.
Oh, that's all right. It's not just me that's uncultured.
No, not at all. But in that, you've got this idea of this kind of pampered elite who are kind of living very self-centred, hedonistic lives, and that's sort of what's going on in Shades now. But usually in this sort of story, a dissenter will sort of break out and they will discover the truth of what is going on beyond the city. And in Shades, it's gone the other way. Ultimately, the dissenter complies and decides. And it's interesting showing how, she ultimately kind of conforms, not because of sinister forces.
No, exactly. There's no bad guy, really, is there?
Not really. There's no bad guys in this one at all, really. I mean, she ultimately gives up because of her friends, and she wants
they want her to be
connection,
happy and
with
together,
them.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually quite a realistic way of the way a lot of us are, really, in the world. It's, Shades is a kind of about that process that most of us kind of learn to live with terrible things.
Yeah.
Sort of like, rather than try and change them.
Exactly. Not everyone will go out and protest, even though we might object to and have sympathy with the protesters. You're right. We're not all psychomasochists.
That's it.
In fact, I was trying to work out what the title even means.
I'm glad you raised that, because
good prompt.
I'm in a similar position. I mean, on the more literal point, Shades refers to the VR goggles that
Oh.
everybody is wearing.
The VR is just a kind of showing us what they do rather than being central to the plot. So is it just to do with like that whole shades of grey as your way of thinking rather than neither being good or bad or black and white?
Yeah,
Is that what it means?
It's a classic kind of bread and circuses thing, really. I mean, and initially you might look at the in the Radio Times and look at the first 10 minutes or so of the play and think this is going to be a play about the
Hedonistic youth or whatever.
hedonist and the addiction of VR and escaping into a fantasy world, sort of like, and it doesn't really go. That's not really the story. It's not about it's not a Black Mirror, the evils of media technology type story. The VR largely kind of gets once it's established, and
we don't see it again.
it's never it's not really referred to again. It's interesting prediction. I mean, it's always interesting to see how the future predicts what it's going to be like, because bits of it have come true,
but how much of that is just coincidence?
Probably there is a fair amount of more coincidence in the I mean, we have certain other sci-fi tropes. We've got the talking computer, or the computer that you talk to, but that's not they've been with us sort of like since certainly Star Trek, and probably prior to Star Trek. So there's that element, and where they just talk to computers and do that sort of review of the past. And
of course,
that's something we could easily do now. And
yes, YouTube.
Exactly, YouTube, and exactly that. It's that they're seeing. It also has that kind of feature trope that they're looking at it on a huge wall-sized screen, which is another sort of indicator of the future that you often see in sci-fi. And it's always weird. In some ways, this play has quite a few connections with Bright Eyes.
Oh yeah,
which I know you've not seen,
because they're all separate writers, weren't they?
They're all separate writers, so they're all drawing from the same films that they've seen, and they've got producer. But Bright Eyes is also about young people and political protests, and the idea that too radicalised, or are they? Are young people not radicalised enough? And similar, and Shades is really about the same thing,
right?
Really, it's a very 60s boomer, to use that. It's that 60s generation who I think were back in the 80s and certainly the 90s were complaining that the teenagers weren't as radical and political as they were.
Yeah, because I imagine the writers might have been in their 30s, maybe. I didn't look him up that much. Yeah, it's interesting what they're trying to say. Was there any crossover? Like you said, Bright Eyes had a similar thing about youth protesting. I mean, obviously there was a producer and a script editor, so both of them could have said, "Hang on, this guy over here is writing the same storyline that you've written for your play." So I'm sure they made sure they weren't all the same story. But like you said, they're all drawing from the same source, aren't they?
Because it's Play for Tomorrow, and the series has a very theatrical feel. All these episodes.
But they're all playwrights.
I think a lot of them were
Stephen Lowe was a playwright.
Stephen Lowe was certainly. I think he was well known as a playwright.
I had a quick look up, and certainly. So they wanted contemporary playwrights, didn't they?
Although he has written quite a bit of television since. But there's practically all these plays you can imagine being put on a stage without too much difficulty. So, and in plays, whereas in television we get especially science fiction television, we're always looking for originality, and we can be quite critical of things that seem to be copying other things. Whereas in theatre, and Robert Shearman said this, that in the theatre that's okay because it's a theme. It's not like if you keep telling the same story over and over. So I think that's.
Oh, I see.
So I think in a way they didn't mind that there is a certain amount of repetition.
Bit of
between-
overlap.
Yeah, a bit of overlap. But there's no direct continuity. There's no attempt to kind of wrap it into a kind of future history.
Yeah, of course, because it's an anthology. And I mean, they're all set around the late 90s or early 2000s, aren't they?
That's right. So, I mean, you could just about think it, but that's more because each play is very much in its own little capsule to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how much does get established. Talk about post-war survival training.
Yeah, we just kind of see like an outdoor survival type course.
But there's a kind of suggestion that it is more. It's more a propaganda thing than a kind of genuine,
of course,
sort of preparation. It's just to make people feel safe.
Yeah, like they'll be able to do something, sort of outdoor survival skills.
That's it. It's a play where practically all the characters just kind of blindly trust authority. And I think that's one of the themes, that these are teenagers who apparently, because of the bread and circuses of the visors, they seem to have everything put on for them. It's interesting. Again, they all
move into these youth centres when they're, I presume, they all look like they're about 18 or older, don't they, the cast?
Yeah.
So I imagine they're there to be grown-ups, but they've had their parents' influence until that age, but the idea was to put them all together. Because I guess there's not enough work. We talk about volunteering, looking after old people in a care home.
And it's interesting.
But it's a hedonistic putting them all together, isn't it?
If you really start thinking about it, it begins to break down a little bit, this plan.
Yes.
But at the same time, we're only there for an hour, so we haven't got time to go into too much detail about how this society is. Like, what do they do about policing or security?
Yeah.
Who keeps these nice shiny? Do people clean the place themselves?
Yeah.
Or are there? There's no mention of sort of we don't see any older people.
No, because it's for the young people.
For the young people.
But they talk about when they're looking at the archive footage of the 80s, they're talking about an office block before they became like youth centres, because there's no need for them later on with the invention of this microtech.
I mean, that's interesting.
So everyone works from home, which is just like now.
That is quite an accurate. And it's interesting that it seems to have worked, unless, of course, because we're inside Dome City, there could be massive poverty taking place elsewhere that we're and these characters are unaware of. But it seems like, even though everyone's virtually unemployed, it's sort of, they're living very comfortable lives. There doesn't seem to be any shortages of anything.
That's it. We've got to work for an hour a day or whatever, and then we can just do whatever we like. On the VR, hanging out with each other or having parties. That's
What did you think when Sheena sort of wakes up and suddenly she's in the 80s?
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that. I thought, is this the plot twist now? Is she dreaming about the future and what's going to happen? Because they've got different names in the past. And I sort of thought, hang on, have I missed a scene here, or is this a plot twist that she's just dreaming this future where, the kids are in some kind of utopia and the bomb is still around? How about you?
I did slightly wonder, certainly the first time I watched it, thinking that, is this going to be, it was all the dream? I'm very pleased to say it wasn't, really.
Would it be too much of a cliche?
I think it would be exactly too much of a cliche to say that this future life is just a fantasy she's dreaming. So I think it does work better that she's more dreaming herself into this character, this woman that she's been watching.
Yeah, because she's copied her clothes, hasn't she? So
it's interesting that, I mean, like I said, you being a young stripling but it is interesting now to see the 80s as a period piece.
I know.
You know, that, and I mean, at the time, it's a bit funny because it's 1982.
Yes.
This is made, and it's kind of imagining itself being viewed in the future.
Yeah.
So it's still authentically 80s-esque. You know,
Exactly. Was this made before the Falklands War?
Um,
Because I presume it would have been made in 81 and broadcast in 82.
yeah, that's terrible. I want to say the
Because
Falklands is 1982.
there's no reference. Let's have a look. So it was broadcast between April and May 82. Around that time. Oh no, April to June, Falklands War.
So it was kind of going on, actually, at the time.
Perhaps they hadn't arrived at the Falklands by the time we were showing the final episodes.
Oh.
Because British forces took a few weeks to sail out there, didn't they?
But I think because it was just a kind of a British via Argentina, I don't think people kind of attached the Falklands to the bomb because...
I suppose not. There was no...
Because Argentina, if Argentina had been a nuclear power, it would have been a very different kind of thing.
Definitely. You know, I was just going to say, you were saying earlier about these low budget plays. You know, the budget's even smaller than Blake 7. You know, this really is cheap. It's funny. I mean, obviously we're watching it on VHS copy, but it was shot all on video. It just looks so cheap. You know, and I mean, were Play to Today's as cheap, or was it just simply that they were stretching the Play for Today budget by trying to look futuristic?
I think that is, it's more the latter case. I think Play for Today is... The thing that I like about Shades is that it does try and go a bit into the future, whereas the rest of this series stays pretty much, and to be honest, fairly realistically saying that 2001 is going to look fairly similar to...
Well, exactly. In real life, things haven't changed that much. You know, we've just got more computers around and smartphones, haven't we?
That's it, to some extent. I mean, maybe someone in 1982 would think it would look very different. I mean, smartphones is the obvious big change that nobody...
Yeah, bigger televisions.
Bigger televisions, but not wall-sized televisions. It's interesting.
But you're right, the smartphone, definitely.
The smartphone is the big thing that nobody really...
thought would catch on.
Yeah.
They didn't think mobiles would catch on,
Nobody
did they?
predicted this at the time. Well, I'm saying nobody. I'm sure there are...
Of course, yes.
Somebody. But this idea that we'd all be walking around with our little sort of slabs of glass and metal and being able to access all this information and just how addictive it would be. I mean, like, you know, Star Trek, they're all walking around with pads. But nobody's kind of constantly kind of refreshing them and looking at them all the time. So I think we need to talk about performances. Well, are there any that stand out for you amongst this cast?
I didn't really feel engaged by anybody. Not when I was bored, but it just lacked something. Obviously, I suppose Tracy Childs as Sheena because she's the main character. But then her friend, the one that's obsessed with motor cars and racing.
I think that's Joe, played by Stuart Mackenzie.
He stood out. I don't know him. And I recognise Neil Pearson as the sex-obsessed one from Drop the Dead Donkey. He was great in Drop the Dead Donkey.
Yeah, he's a good actor. I've seen him in several things.
He's done loads.
I seem to remember an interview with him. He said he was quite embarrassed by his performance in Shades.
I guess so.
I think it was his first TV role.
Right.
So I think he just feels, I could have done that better.
No, I mean, Tracy Childs, I recognised her name, but wasn't quite sure, so I had to look it up. And probably the biggest thing would be the Big Finish Doctor Who audio of Colditz. She played the German scientist Klein.
Oh, all right.
I remember that being all right. I think she went on to be a temporary companion for the Seventh Doctor in some further audio dramas.
Yeah, what struck me most about the performance, I think I agree with you that there's not really,
No one
although
else really.
obviously,
I mean, her best friend, but I can't remember her name, and I've watched it twice.
I think she does a good job, Tracy Child,
yeah.
of this character. I mean, but in a way, everybody else is very much the supporting character to her
Yes.
story. She's the only one who really has an arc.
Yeah, she has an arc, but then, like you said, she kind of loses it by being taught back into living the hedonistic lifestyle with everybody else.
Yeah, that's the...
she starts to go a bit psychomasochist, doesn't she?
One of the interesting things about the play is that scene where they have this, it ends with them having this intervention.
Yes.
And they're sort of telling her that all the kind of protesting, worrying about the government and the bomb and interest is all just like a symptom of her sort of insecurities and her sort of sexual immaturity.
Yeah.
And that it's all basically just growing pains. And it's interesting. And everyone's so reasonable about it, even though in many ways they're being very self-centered and very narrow in some ways, quite narrow-minded in it. But I think as I said at the start, I think that's in some ways quite a realistic view of how people are. People need people.
Yes.
And I just find it interesting that they use all this language of, this counselling language, and say, it's all to do with your sort of like hidden fears, sort of like that. You've supplemented them into this obsession with CND, and then they all go off happily having a party and forgetting all about it.
I would say though that despite seeming to be played by adults, I think they are meant to be teens, but I don't know what age. But they seem quite happy, and they're not like delinquents or anything. They're all quite intelligent, and obviously the school system must still work quite well.
Yeah, they do seem to be, even though, I mean, when they go looking back into history, there's some humour in that they misunderstand things.
Of course, because we're looking back 18 years or whatever, and say for example, my children, they're 14 and 16. Mm-hmm. Now, anything that happened before my oldest was born in 2008 would seem, the 90s to them would be ancient. And yet, it's only, 10 years since the 90s, isn't it, Gareth?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So so you look back at that, and it's so long ago, things have changed. Even going back to 2000, which would be the closest analogy with shades, things have changed. Fashions, obviously more mobile phones, but if I don't think in the world of shades information is suppressed, but certainly that it's kind of news to them when they see the people dressed up at the horse racing, for example. They think that's normal fashions.
Yes.
They think, oh, did it really dress like that? We might look back on, I don't know, Burberry shell suits, and think, did everyone wear shell suits?
That's it. I mean, that's coming. They'll be doing 90s dramas, and everyone will be wearing
things wrong
in the same way that in the 80s you probably see more puffer skirts than probably actually were being worn at the time.
They laugh at a photo of Adam and the Ants.
Oh,
don't they?
Yes.
I loved Adam and the Ants. I mean, I was 9 when they were big, so I wasn't really into pop music, but obviously I was aware of them and would have seen them on children's TV, the Saturday morning shows. Mm-hmm. And who didn't like Prince Charming or Standard Delivery? They were brilliant. They still are.
They're imagining them. They're trying to imagine what people will think of them in the future. So that's an interesting bit of humour. One thing I will say about all the performances is it's terribly RP.
I was going to say that that's another thing about showing them to be intelligent. I mean, maybe Neil Pearson's slightly different, but you're right, everyone else is... We joke about the BBC being RP for a long time, don't we?
Yeah.
But I'm sure by 81, 82, everyone was happy with regional or working class accents. So is it a deliberate move or just coincidence that they've cast everybody that speaks that way?
I think it is more an unconscious bias on the BBC that they want they want people to speak clearly so that we can understand them. It's interesting also, like you say, that everyone's very well behaved, pretty much. And I think if play had been done a couple of years later, I think it would have been a lot more
working class,
punkish.
Yeah,
I think it would have.
Oh, they laugh at the punks, don't they?
That's true. Yeah. So it's a very, to some extent, middle class kind of view.
That's what I'm saying. You know, the production team and the writer, not working class, and are they looking down on the punks, so to speak, and having that kind of middle-aged, you know, bring back national service kind of mentality that the middle-aged and the middle classes have. You know, if this play's meant to be about the doom and gloom and the overhanging shadow of the bomb still with us in 20 years or so, of the bomb still being over us 20 years later, is it still having to go at youth as a thing, saying, I'm in my 30s or 40s, I don't like young people, we're all tearaways or whatever.
Probably the main problem, right, this play has with the youth is that they're not rebelling enough. There's a sort of fatalism about it. You know, it's a case of, there is a bomb, but
it might not happen.
It might not happen. Or they, as somebody says towards the end, they won't let it happen. And she's saying, well, who are they? You know,
a friend Kate, isn't it?
Yeah, her friend Kate. She, you know.
Julie. Sorry, it's Julie, isn't it?
It's Julie, yes. Yeah. And she sort of like says, you know, the people in charge. I don't know if she actually uses I can't remember now if she actually uses the word the grown-ups.
She thinks it's aliens that could be observing us, because she's the one who talks about 2001.
That was another reference I quite liked.
And a monolith. In fact, I just realised where I knew her from. She was in Hello Hello. Oh. She was one of the first sexy waitresses.
Do you know, I didn't realise
I think she was the one that left.
That's probably why I did connect.
I knew I'd seen her. I knew I'd seen her before. And it's like bugging me, and like, now I know. So I don't know. Was it meant to be a joke that the SDP were in power still after winning the election of '82?
I think that's an interesting. It could be a bit of humour, or it could be. That's how weird the future is going to be, that the SDP... I imagine there's a touch of humour to it.
I was going to say, do you think that's the only time Tony Benner's appeared in any science fiction?
I think it could. I think it well could.
Unwittingly, of course.
Unwittingly, yes, even though he was very much a part of the whole white heat of technology sort of policy. Something else that jumped out at me is that it's not trying to anticipate, but it also makes you think about Big Brother, the TV show, rather than the 1984, in that you got all these young people together in a house, sort of like, and a lot of it is about who's dating who, and sitting about having conversations, ill-informed conversations about things.
Yeah, sorry. One thing I noticed, the director, Bill Hayes, he was married to Catherine Schell, who was mayor in Space 1999.
Ah, it's a small world.
And apparently, when he retired from television, he and Catherine ran a guest house in France.
Bill Hayes does a good job.
I don't think he's done any sci-fi apart from this. And what does he even considered sci-fi? I mean... Yes, it was a sci-fi spin-off of Play for Today, but like you said, were they making it for mainstream audiences, and so it was more realistic?
I suspect they would rather call it speculative fiction, or rather than science fiction.
I know, but that's the thing. Science fiction is really about ideas of how some social change or technology will affect people, and I think that's... Obviously, the perception is, maybe to the general public, is Star Wars. It has to be set in space. It has to have aliens or whatever, doesn't it? But it's not though. It's
No.
about the ideas and how it affects people.
Yeah, I think all the stories.
But it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, all the stories in Play for Tomorrow, I think, definitely qualify as science fiction.
Like I said, I watched a couple of other episodes just to get a feel for the rest of it. But obviously, you've done other recordings of us, so I don't want to step on their toes. But it's just out of the three I watched. So Crimes, this, and The Nuclear Family. Neither of them grabbed me, and it's like or excited me. And I'm used to watching old, slow-paced television. I love old Doctor Who. I love Quatermass. So I'm used to it. But they're just dragged, and I kept expecting every episode to end with a twist that somebody's going to set off a nuclear bomb. The war's going to start, or someone's going to, or one of our characters is going to accidentally cause it to go off. Which didn't happen. Which I suppose is good that it wasn't predictable. But I just kind of felt I could see why these didn't catch on, even in terms of like say, I don't know, I might like Invasion Earth, for example, from BBC Two, 90s. That was really good, but again, never been repeated, never had a home release in this country anyway. Generally it's forgotten, And that was sci-fi aimed at the masses. They were playing down the sci-fi, weren't they? So I don't think it worked as an experiment, really. But out of those three, if I was going to watch another again, I'd probably watch The Nuclear Family.
That's interesting.
Even with it being slightly comedic, maybe that helps.
I think that does help. I think certainly the characters are stronger.
Oh, and incidental music as well. We didn't have anything in Shades, did we?
No, there's just some atmospherics, really, at the start and the end. But I think interesting you put a finger on it, and actually myself, I do like Nuclear Family, and I think one of the reasons is that it's got 6 sharply defined characters, whereas they do kind of blur together a bit. Everyone except Sheena is kind of just a sort of well-behaved, generally slightly raunchy, horny, well, supposedly. Well, I call a young person. That covers.
Yeah. So the accents as well in The Nuclear Family. It's Glasgow, I think, isn't it? So they've all got Scottish accents. So that's got away from your RP as well.
It's interesting. I mean, Shades. In some ways, it's interesting. It ends up being quite an ambiguous play, and I think what you take away from it is a bit where you stand on.
Is it worth protesting?
Politics. Is it a fairly pragmatic view of modern life and the kind of compromises we make, and that's generally a good thing. It's saying in the end that we kind of a slightly more fatalistic kind of, we got to accept that there are things beyond our
control.
It's like the serenity, change the things I can, accept the things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference between them.
That sounds profound. Go with that.
It does. Now there's an interesting phrase you said. It sounds profound, and what the people say at the end of in that climactic intervention scene sounds very reasonable.
Yes. Exactly. Not having a go. These are generally, her friends are genuinely concerned for her.
Yeah. Or you can take away a much more negative. You could say almost the dictatorship has won, and it's raised this apathetic population of young people who are going to just kind of they'll leave this place eventually and just kind of form very conforming family units in the future. And in a way, it's a story about a government that's kind of cracked the youth problem.
Yeah, we talk about the youth riots of the 80s as well, don't they?
They do. There is a general feeling that something happened and the government did a big clampdown on...
The SDP did a big clampdown.
Of all people, did a big clampdown on dissident voices. Now, that's a very relevant thing for today's politics.
Of course.
And
Of course, yes, arresting peaceful protesters like to stop oil or Extinction Rebellion, and putting them in prison.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm sympathetic to her needs, but I can't see myself gluing myself to a motorway. Sorry, guys, but ultimately, I think history will prove them right. I think it genuinely will. The way things go in the world, I think they'll be proven right. And like the suffragettes, they'll be hailed as heroes by future generations. Meanwhile, the people who, Priti Patel, etc., who introduce these laws to put them in prison, they'll be vilified.
I think it might well happen. I think in time to come. I mean, that possibly could be something that drives protests on in the egotistical way, in the ego way of, everyone's calling me a numpty now, but
Look, play this back in 20 years, guys. We'll see if we were right.
I'll be proved right in the end. So you could say this is a play about they didn't know the word cancel culture, the phrase cancel culture in 1982, but this is a way you could say this whole thing is a kind of triumph of cancel culture.
Oh. Yeah, so we no longer have protesting then.
Yeah.
And I guess these youth apartment blocks are a way to prevent whatever caused the youth riots.
Yes,
because I imagine it could have been over something like lack of employment. The way these themes are going with the play for tomorrow, it's probably something like dissatisfaction about employment.
That's it. I mean, there were worries. It's something that comes through in nuclear family as well about the effects of mass unemployment.
There's no work because of technology or environment or whatever. Yeah,
that was another very real fear in the 80s because there was mass unemployment and
true. Thanks, Thatcher.
Yeah, and these old industries were dying, and people were genuinely thinking, what are we going to do with all these people? There aren't enough jobs.
Well, and this was before the miners' strike as well, wasn't it?
So that's true, yes. Now a little bit later on, if they'd made this series a little bit later on, I've no doubt some kind of allegory of the miners' strike. Yeah,
because that's to do with pit closures, wasn't it? That was the instigator, I believe.
Yeah, that could all be going on beyond the walls of the of the living blocks. We just don't know, really. In a way, this is in some ways we're in the society before either a more effective rebel than Sheena arrives, or some terrible calamity. That possibly these people, the government has been shielding people from, that is suddenly going to bring the house of cards down.
But like you said, that an alternative version would be that Sheena would become pro CND and start some kind of youth rebellion. But that's not the story this play is telling, is it? It's the opposite.
Yeah. So, we've been looking into the future with shades.
The future and the past to us now.
And I was thinking about what lies in your future, John Isles.
So, for those that don't know, I don't do sci-fi. My co-host Danny, who is not a science fiction fan, but is open to trying things. We introduce her to classic films and television. So we've done things like Blake Seven, Star Cops, Doctor Who and the Daleks. We've just done the original Quatermass and the Pit. We just released an episode on the original Star Trek. We've got coming up this season, we got RoboCop, the original film, Stargate movie. Our next one's going to be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy television series. So it's quite entertaining. Sometimes it's interesting hearing a new perspective on something that I know very well and I've watched a lot, and it's like, oh yeah, or like she'll ask us, why do you like this about it, or we can ask her the same, or even you've been a guest on a few episodes, Gareth, so it's like it's quite entertaining.
It is definitely. I've always enjoyed my guest spots on the podcast, and yes, some of the times, Danny can come up with some really interesting new takes, some sometimes surprising new takes.
And sometimes I think she might like something, and she'll hate it, or we think she won't be keen on it, but then she loves it.
Yeah.
But we do know that she has a particular dislike of anything from the 70s. So we always try and get at least something from the 70s in each season that we do.
Just remains me to say thank you very much, John, for taking the time to come along.
Well, thank you for having me back, and we're actually recording in person again. It's always it was a nice touch, that.
So, just remains me to say thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Very British Futures is hosted and produced by Gareth Preston with guest John Isles. Music by Chattery Art. If you can take a moment to rate us, that would be much appreciated. You can get in touch with the podcast via Very British Futures Podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on X, Twitter at FuturesVery, or visit our Facebook page. This has been a Phantom Frame production.